Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Xbox Series S and compare it against the Xbox One X and see which particular console is a better one for you. Now, the thing I would definitely tell you between both of these consoles is that there isn't really one that's like way better or way worse. If you're wanting the newer console that's going to be giving you a newer experience, then the Xbox Series S is probably the one that's going to be the longer lasting one. That's going to be the one that's going to give you more of a future. And if you're planning on buying a particular phone, that is the one that makes them, if you're planning on buying a specific gaming console, that is the one that I basically look at as probably being the significantly better one for almost every single person out there. But the Xbox One X is also a very good console. I like this console a lot. There's still a lot of power and a lot of capability behind that one as well. And there really isn't one that I'd look at and be like, oh my goodness, this is the significantly better one in every single area. But with something like the, Xbox Series S, that is the one that I'd probably look at as probably the one to be a little bit better in some ways. So we'll talk about that throughout this whole entire video. If you want to pick up this console or one of these consoles, links will be down in the description. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the Xbox Series S and the Xbox One X, the One X came out a few years ago, so it's a little bit of an older console than the Xbox Series S, which you probably would have expected. But again, that's just kind of what happens when you're getting these types of older consoles. The Xbox One X design was actually very, very nice. The big difference though between the Xbox Series S and the Xbox One X is that you are actually getting a disc tray inside of the Xbox One X. This is by far probably one of the biggest differences here, and one that I want to spend a little bit more time on. Beyond than just the performance and the design and everything, the fact that you're going to be getting a disc tray on the Xbox One X is a very, very big deal for me. I will tell you, one of the biggest advantages of having a disc tray is the fact that you can basically go through and essentially, buy used games in the used market and plug them in straight inside of your Xbox console. That is a very big deal. And now that the Xbox console is a little bit older, you can basically go ahead and buy one of these older types of consoles and get a cheaper type of, you can get an experience on it that's not going to be that bad. It's still going to be working and everything like that. But these games are going to be significantly cheaper now. And there's a lot of overlap between the Xbox games and this game as well, or the Xbox Series S games. So this in and of itself is a very, very big deal for me. If I'm going through and if I'm buying a sort of console, I like the fact that my gaming console is going to allow me to buy used games. And that is a very, very big thing for me. The Series S, your only option is buying digital games. And even though the Series S might be a little bit cheaper in some ways, with the Xbox Series S, you're going to be getting a more expensive console in some ways, but the games are also going to be more expensive. And I know it's the newer one, so it makes sense. But the Xbox One X, from that side alone, is a very, very big deal for me. So that in of itself is probably one of the biggest advantages going from an Xbox Series S to an Xbox One X. Yeah, there can actually be some upside if you actually downgrade your particular console. Beyond that though, the functionality and everything is basically almost the same on the exterior. The big difference though is that with the Xbox One X on the outside, like the backside, the port selection is a little bit different. So with the Xbox One X, you're basically going to be getting these ports, like 2 HDMI ports, where in the Series S, you're only getting one. The reason why the Xbox One X only had one, the Xbox Series S had one HDMI port and the Series X had 2 was the fact that the Xbox One X allowed HDMI pass-through. So this basically allows you to go through and essentially plug in a different type of console on the backside. And you were able to go through and if you wanted to, plug in a Nintendo Switch, but there's only one HDMI port on your console or on your, TV, you can plug in that HDMI port inside of your console and have it act as a pass-through, which is so cool. So it's almost like an HDMI splitter built inside of your Xbox console. I don't know why Microsoft removed it. I thought it was a really cool feature. The original Xbox One had it as well, but this one, the Series S, does not have it, which is kind of a downside a little bit. But beyond that though, the designs are a little bit different. I like the design of the Series S. I think it looks great. But I think the Xbox One X definitely is the one that looks probably better for a lot of people out there. And if I'm going to go and buy any type of console, that's the one that I look at as probably being the better one in some ways. So this in and of itself is another big thing to kind of keep in mind here too. But beyond that, that kind of covers it up on the exterior. The controllers are almost the exact same thing as well. There's very little difference between the controllers. The only difference here that I can see for the most part that we've seen for a couple years now is the fact that the Series S and the Xbox One X controller, one uses micro USB, the other one uses USB Type-C. So that right there is the only other difference too. The joysticks themselves are also slightly different a little bit. So you can probably see that there's like slight differences that you can see for the most part. But even that's like not the biggest deal in the world. And I do think this in and of itself is another big thing to kind of keep in mind here too. So there's no like built-in batteries. There's built-in batteries, but they're AA, so you have to remove them if you want to, or you could buy the charging battery pack as well. But for the most part, that's kind of how I see these two phones. But for the most part, that's how I see these two gaming consoles holding up from the controller side. From the performance side, there's also some differences here too. So as you could probably expect, there's a lot of overlap here for sure. So with something like the Xbox Series S and the processor, you're getting 8 cores of the processor with 3.6 GHz clocked for those cores. The Xbox One X, there's the same exact amount of cores, but these are now 2.3 GHz. So you're getting an upgrade from the processor side, which is actually very nice. From the graphics side, the Xbox One X had 6 teraflops within that Xbox. The Xbox Series S has 4 teraflops. So the graphics did take kind of a hit. So it's like 50% or whatever, So it's a little bit less than the Xbox One X. So that's another big difference there for the most part. With the memory, that's another thing too. You're getting 12 gigabytes of memory inside of the Xbox One X. It is GDDR5 RAM. With the Xbox Series S, this is 10 gigabytes, but it's DDR6 RAM. So there are some differences between those two, but you are getting 2 gigabytes of RAM less inside the Xbox Series S. You're getting half the amount of built-in storage inside your console as well, but the Xbox One X had a hard drive. It had a 1 terabyte hard drive. The Xbox Series S has a 512 gigabyte SSD. So the SSD is significantly faster. It's going to be giving, it's going to be much more reliable and much more safer to kind of have your data in. The hard drive is obviously a little bit of a different story. So with an SSD, that's going to make a lot more sense for people to buy, and that's going to be just significantly faster. You can expand your storage on both too, which is really nice. And you can output your thing up to a certain resolution and all that. You can get it up to actually 120 frames per second inside the Xbox Series S, which is another really nice thing going on for that particular console as well. So I will tell you from the backside and just from all over these particular consoles, I look at both these particular consoles and I'm a fan of them. As I said before, I don't think there's like a lot of things to hate on this particular console. And if you're going to pick up one, clearly, like I said before, I would probably recommend just buying the Xbox Series S. I think this is the one that would make a lot more sense for me to recommend to the average person. I feel like a phone like that is going to just, I feel like a gaming console like that is going to be the one that I'd recommend the most people, mostly because that's a gaming console that's just not going to have that much, kind of things to, kind of go wrong with it. It's the newest one. It's a newer one, and that's the one that makes a lot more sense for me to recommend. Now, if for some reason you only want to play Xbox One games, let's say you're in the market, you want to play Xbox One games, or you really value having a disc tray of some sort, and you want to get a gaming console that gives you that disc tray, so you can go through and just basically have you can buy those used games or whatever the case is, then it would make even more sense of purchasing a particular gaming console like the Xbox One X. That would make a lot more sense for some people to go and buy then, because that one is not going to be giving you this super, it's not going to give you a closed system in a way. So for those people, I'd recommend buying an Xbox One X. But for the others, I think the Xbox Series S is probably the safest one I'd recommend the average person to go ahead and buy. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there for the most part. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out, Solon.